was on the fence whether we were going to do this project or not. Mona Walsh from People's Visioning came to me and said she'd like to partner with us and help us out in any support that she could. So I talked to her, and she got Daniel Carlo, our architect, on board. And then after Daniel came, he got Lawrence Lyle on board. And so I decided that we had enough information, enough expertise that Habitat would jump into this and give it a shot. I think we're really ready to go on this. We're going to sell this house for $107,000. And the goal was to make it net zero, and according to Lyle's calculations, we are at net zero on this house. So having said that, that's the two most important things I want to mention is that I think we met the goal of net zero, and we can build a house for $107,000, and we're excited to have the project. Having said that, I just want to say that Daniel and Lawrence Lyle, both worked on the shelter energy house that was done 5 years ago or whenever it was done. That's not my expertise, but Danny was an architect, and Lawrence was the engineer for that project, and that was a really big project by shelter. I think the mechanical room was even like 80 feet long just for the mechanical room. So it was a big project, and shelter put their trust in these two gentlemen, and so have I. Daniel, you want to make the presentation, and then we'll go from there?
Okay, real good.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess the main point we need to make again is that it's a zero energy house. We really wanted to tackle with Manta here, with Visions. She got me into working with them. Visions is a group that wants to save the planet and the environment and global warming, address those issues. So the idea of this model and this project is zero energy. Oh yeah, there's the site plan. You see the panels up on the roof. We see them here on the model as well. That supplies the power, the electrical, and then we have 2 panels for the water. So we have domestic hot water is also heated by the panels. Then in the front we do a trom wall here. We want to call this the catalog house because we want people to come here and look and see what's possible to do on our house. What can we do on our project? And what's going on with solar. And we're trying to address global warming, really, and you know, this is a perfect opportunity to do that. So then, as we bring in light from the north on this side, we have the panels on this side. We enter from Sanford's side over here on this side of the street, as you can see here, and the garage is in the back. Come in through the kitchen. Go to the next one, Bill, will you? The idea behind the architecture is to create a sense of space, cutting out windows in the corner, up here, and then over here, back in the kitchen, in the bedroom. So the house is small, it has to be small. It's 1,200 square foot as the other one was. But how do we make it feel larger? That's the question. If we want to stop things like domestic violence and people not feeling depressed, we can give them air and light. So above you see there's a clear story facing the north, panels on the south. And then we bring the light into the center of the building, run it all the way through, and then come through to the center, and then we work into the interior of the space with the light coming through here, and then soffitting that would be going around this above the closets there. It runs around, comes back, and turns, and then it's the flat ceiling above in the kitchen in this part of the living room. Right through here, the kitchen here, and the light is coming down through the center. Here it's diffusing into the bathroom, which is universal design. We have one bathroom, universal design. The other, the children's room is normal design. The square footage was so tight. Again, like the other design, we eliminated the hallways, but we did make little entry niches for the entrance into the private areas. And with the soffit there, that niche has a little 7-foot-high entrance into the room, so you feel like you've passed into the space. It's about the psychology of space that we're working with here. And then we have these units. Now, Larry, I want you to take it into the system and explain these split system units. We have yeah, go on.
One of the things I looked at energy model for the building, trying to figure out, okay, how can we make a low energy building at low cost? I looked at the geothermal heat pumps. I looked at a mini split heat pump. Mini split heat pumps are almost as efficient, but they are much lower cost. And so we decided maximize the amount of solar roof that we've got, south-facing roof, and reduce cost on some of the other things, maximize the solar energy input into the house, and that reduces the utility bills as much as possible for the homeowner. Because we're figuring this is a low-income homeowner, they don't have lots of money to spend on the utility bill. We're going to try to get it so that it is, well, I project a HERS rating of 0, which means it's year-round, it's producing as much energy as it consumes. The mini split heat pumps, I think, are an idea that can be used on other types of low-income housing. Habitat, of course, has built, Bill knows how many.
118.
118. So they built as much more low-income housing than anybody around here. So the idea of building this house is trying to look for cost compromises that don't affect the energy use that much, but allow us to build a real cost-conscious house. So I actually looked at each of the energy items and decided, kind of made a cut. If it doesn't reduce the HERS rating by at least 1 or 2, then we don't need that. We're going to use a more cost-effective item. That's where we came up with, of course, the mini split heat pumps. Of course, we're using conventional stick building techniques, heavily insulated wall roof, pretty good windows, that sort of thing. But Bill was saying this is not that much different from the house that Habitat already builds. Thicker walls, thicker attic insulation, more efficient HVAC, and a big solar, an 8-kilowatt solar array, makes it into a really energy efficient house. It should probably have produce more energy than it consumes all summer, and then a little bit less than it consumes all winter.
Okay, now Manta, we'd like to call Manta from People's Visioning. She'll be presenting. We worked as a team very closely on this project to generate what we felt was appropriate for our time. Okay.
No, we decided, I would like to also introduce Eugene Elkin. He's with the People's Visioning. He's the co-chair of our energy topic group. We've been visioning and brainstorming just as the grassroots visioning here. And so this is one of the ways that we are trying to help our city and our citizens to address climate change, save money, address some of the issues of psychological and physical health that Daniel mentioned within the context of the building. And I know that some of you may remember that People's Visioning went to City Council, or maybe you don't know this, but we went to City Council, the first council meeting in December, and said we'd like to have renewable energy 80% by 2015. And this was one of the pieces that we said we could show our city how we could do this, how we could accomplish it. So we wanted to do this net zero demonstration home. We heard, ironically, that Randy had been thinking about something similar, and then we heard that there was maybe not a certainty that the city would request for proposal as net zero, so we just wanted to assure Randy that at least that we'd like to do something and make sure that our city did have an experimental demonstration net zero home with all these features. We actually have even an alternative green in our catalog home as well that we could offer some ideas if you need to know more things about how we can even reduce our carbon footprint.
Sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Daniel?
Yeah, I just want to close and say that's what we did. We addressed the design as a world problem that we're trying to solve here. But mainly we want to show the people of Columbia what is possible, what it might look like, why it looks like that, and so forth and so on, to educate the people, rather than to just address your issue of your RFP. I think we kind of took it to the next step. And we have also studied the possibility of taking it to the next step and modifying it if we want with straw bale and so forth. It hasn't been done, but we met your RFP here. That's what we're talking about today. But we have other points about this particular building that we could investigate if you would like us to.
start with the question, I have seen the location, and the place is surrounded by tall and heavily wooded trees. If you're going for solar, what effect, what are you planning on doing with all the trees that are, I think, blocking?
I'm calculating about, there are several trees that I would recommend taking out on the property. And from trees off of the property, I'm calculating about a 25% loss of power for the solar array. It gets pretty good afternoon sun, noonday sun, terrible morning sun. It might be possible to negotiate with an adjacent property owner. We've looked into that to see if a tree could be taken out and planted somewhere else. But trees on the property, I would take out the south trees.
Another point on the trees is that we have Ash Street to the south, so we have this window. We're limited on the east because of a large group of trees right there. On our side, what we plan to do is take the trees down that we need to appropriately give our panels the power, and we want to come back in there with trees for the birds, lower trees, smaller trees, but also friendly trees for the habitat for the people, rather than a really big tall tree like that. It does disadvantage the design, but we feel that the design warrants. One of the trees was cut as a young tree, and it's 3 branches. So, I mean, the trees are.
So what, we are assuming that you'll be able to negotiate on cutting down some of the trees within the other neighbors. What permission would you have from the city? Because I don't think the city would just want you to start cutting off trees,
I was really focused just on trying to do the ones on the lot and assuming that we lost about 25% of our potential solar, which is not too, it's pretty typical to lose about that much for solar installations, unless they're just completely clear. Usually you lose a little bit more in your evening.
But Lawrence's calculation was to arrive at net zero, counted in the fact that we're going to lose 25% of that.
There is a tree in the center of the lot, a small scrubby one that we are planning to take out. The larger one is right above my pencil there. That's one that is old and mature and probably could fall over the storm, but again, we'd have to check with the city. Up here is the problem. On the east end, we have more trees and larger, and it shades us until about 11 o'clock. Now we get the sun around this way. In the morning, we would be cut off slightly. In the wintertime, however, we would get more sun, although there is an evergreen there that's green year-round. So we're hoping that we could negotiate a way to re-landscape their trees with smaller trees, and the same here where we take a few drops. But the majority of the trees really start more in this back area through here. That's where the big trees are, except for...
If we can't take out any neighbors' trees, it's fine. We've still got a pretty good solar side.
Yeah.
And
As long as the trees on our lot, ash and
doesn't cutting down the tree, because I have had one cut down right there on, I think, 4 or 5 ash. Very expensive. Doesn't that add to your cost, trying to cut down, or are you going to utilize your own?
We've got some contingencies in there for that. We've also got, if the solar package for the hot water, which is not in our bid, by the way, just the solar array panels are in our bid. The hot water's not in our bid. If Power and Light funds those, the company that we're going to get those from has assured me that he's got somebody that can help us cut down those trees that are certified to do so at a very negotiated price. So we've considered that. Thank you.
Bill, how much funding is Water and Light to this project? If you lose that
Today, zero.
Okay.
And we have on our proposal what we've asked them to fund and what they said they would like to fund.
Okay.
But there's nothing in our base bid that is contingent on Water and Light doing anything.
Okay.
So we can meet the HERS rating whether Water and Light funds a nickel of it.
Okay.
The only thing we won't have that you might think we have would be the solar hot water, because we've talked about solar panels. But those solar panels are just to generate electricity, nothing to do with the water. If Light and Power adds the water, we'll put that in our project.
One of the issues of the structure here, you're eliminating the wood frame and the roofing. And yes, we do have storms here. What's the issue around the safety and the ability of that roof style to withstand windstorms?
Yeah.
Now, Daniel, before you start, just remember that Water and Light is also going to fund metal roofing possibly, but that's not in our base bid, just to make that clear.
I'm not so concerned with the roofing, I'm talking about the support of the roofing.
Yeah.
I got you.
Style where
Okay.
there's opportunities for wind to get into this structure.
Or the heavy snow
Okay.
like we had this year.
Yeah.
All right, well, let me point this out to you. If you look at the top drawing there, it's called a section, it's cut through the building. Okay, right through here. And we're cutting through trusses. You see that the slope of the rear roof extends into this other way.
Yeah.
Okay, and now there's a bottom cord goes all through there. There may be some supports that come in through the middle. I didn't draw in the pre-designed, but that's a truss, so that will have members in it, like trusses do. It's pre-engineered. Their configuration, I don't know. I do know, though, that I gotta bring that through. And these will be laid in as trusses when they come to the site, as they are a normal construction. There is one thing the design does have, though, that I really think will beef it up, more than beyond other houses. These beams, you see, the trusses will be carried at the center point there, you know, those two beams there on either end. Now, they run through the house, okay? So like that. So any wind from this side pushing on this building with the racking strength of the walls will then alleviate any problem with any kind of structural problem. The span of this thing, we've got 48 feet for a truss. They usually go 60, up 60 and onward for the span. I can clear span that, but I'm tying it in with the architecture, and then I can play with the sizes. And I'm going to do a pre-engineered truss, but I want to put them at maybe 4 foot on center, and then put more cross pieces this way. There's two ways to skin a cat on a structure. Either you put it this way, or you add more this way, and so forth and so on. But I want to run this exposed. You see, part of the idea behind the architecture as well is to expose the structure. This is when the architecture really starts to express itself. So going across this area here, we would have some exposed wood pieces that are running through the space with the light cascading through them, creating shadow and light and so forth.
Well, I mean, the house still has to meet all the uniform building codes.
Of course,
design
yeah,
requirements.
yeah, there's no
That's
real
kind of
violation.
a short answer.
Yeah, there's no
It's
violation of...
kind of a different, unique design, but
Yeah.
in terms of engineering, it still has to meet all of the same wind loads, assumed.
Yeah, that's the advantage
structural
of
loads.
pre-engineered trusses. You've got a structural expert on board that designs trusses every day, day in and day out, and they're used to the wind loads and snow loads that we have and codes and that kind of thing we have in this area. So that structural expert is sort of sitting in the back seat. We don't see him here
But
today.
the span of the 48 feet is nothing for a truss.
Right.
So anyway, I hope that answers your question.
So with the solar, you have to have a battery supply, or is this?
No, you run it back into the grid. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay,
It's a passive, I don't understand.
the old way of doing solar was to use batteries and
Okay.
some things like this. The way that we're doing it in the 21st century eliminates the batteries. We're using what we call microinverters. It's a little bitty module that's actually bolted onto the back of the solar panel, right on the roof. And so what comes out of that is 240 volts AC, hooks right into your electrical panel. There's no central inverter, there's no batteries, it's all on the roof. So it's a very reliable system. I've got some on my house. They're quite robust and very inexpensive these days.
And the net metering feature, you know, with the utilities and, you know, feeds the energy that it creates into the utility and.
So surplus goes back on the grid, and at night when
Yeah.
you're drawn.
It essentially uses the grid as a battery.
Yeah,
So
okay.
in the daytime, you're putting it on the grid, in the nighttime, you're using it from the grid. Best battery around, 100% efficient.
Interesting thing was the entry to the mechanical room is only from the outside.
This building's from the garage.
Yeah, it's from the garage.
Yeah.
Protected.
And the panel, everything. And then we run the mechanical all down that soffitting through there, plumbing or, electrical, the solar coming down through there. We've got Hey, will you go back to C1, Bill? If we do get in our plan, we state that if we do get from the power and light, those two panels on the top, the larger panels are water panels to heat our domestic hot water. That would also run down, if you go back again, Bill, that would also go down through this central, it'd all be collected to this one right here. This one. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, and then it would come down to the central core, and then it lines in line with this. Very modern design for a house of this type, you know, in terms of the technology, the expression of the technology, and the minimum. See, by minimizing, we don't need. Did you explain the split system to him already, Larry?
Well,
Our furnace. We don't have a furnace. We
yeah, there's
have
no
these-
furnace room in here. There's some condensing units outside, like a conventional air conditioner. Then on the inside, the mini split air conditioner has an item that's about, it's about as big as two bread baskets, sits on the wall. And you have one in every bedroom and one in the living room. And that's all that you need for heating and cooling the house.
Mhm. And that is ground source as well.
Well, it's not ground source. That's the key. It is much less expensive than a ground source heat pump, but almost as efficient.
Sorry, Larry.
So it's the most cost efficient heat pump there is.